Right. So I'm going to warn you right now, right here, that the watch we're going to look at today is not for those serious hot horologists out there. So you've been warned. And in fact, if that's you, you might break out in hives at your first look at this one. Because this is a watch that doesn't have any sort of history or heritage, or any sort of pomp circumstance behind it. But it is one that's filled with creativity, artistry, and a whole lot of fun. Which is something you can say about every watch in this brand. This is the Mr. Jones Number Cruncher. And as a side note, I actually wound up buying this one almost a year ago, so this review is long overdue. It's just as new watches come in, I wound up putting this one off just a little bit too long. Now, in order to fully understand the Number Cruncher here, you also have to know what the brand is all about as a whole. And Mr. Jones is a watch brand that is based out of London, one that specializes in partnering with local artists to come up with, let's just say, creative, fun, unique ways to tell time. And that's what I love about the brand. They're all fun, wacky, weird designs, yet they're also all functional timepieces, all of which are using standard movements, just combined with some outside the box techniques to bring these things to life. So they work, but they might not be working in the way you would expect the normal watch to work. And from what I know, Mr. Jones does all of their dial printing and assembly in-house in London. Hence this Made in England tag at the back, something you don't see too often. But enough about that. Let's check out this little monster in more detail. And the design here really shouldn't need any explanation. He's called the Number Cruncher. So he's rampaging the city, eating everything, especially the numbers. But the first thing I should probably point out is just how to read this one. And let me throw the specs back up real quick, because I want to point out the movement this one is using, a TY2709. And I think it's made by SEIKO, but I'm not 100% sure. Even if it isn't, though, it is still a Chinese-based jumping hour movement. Similar to what Vario used on their jumping hour Popeye, if you remember that one. So with this one, the little cutout at the top that the monster is holding and just about to eat is the hour. And if you look down here at his belly, there's a disc actually containing the minutes and rotating around. And the one right here in the center is the one you read. And then with this one, you can't really read the seconds, but technically it does have a small seconds in the movement. And if you look really, really closely at his belly, there's another disc there that's rotating around. But instead of numbers, it's filled with random debris, making it kind of look like it's churning in his belly. Now, other than this just being a fun watch that makes you smile, which is a big part of the point here, what I really love about it, and what I wasn't expecting about it, was this 3D feel of the design. It reminds me a lot of animation cells, if you guys remember those. This is way back before everything was CGI, which is where you had a number of drawings put on transparent film and all stacked on top of each other, giving it just a little bit of depth rather than a flat 2D image. And that's what's really cool about this one here, is you got the realistic cityscape in the background, then there are the layers for the hours, the minutes, and the churning secondhand disc, all before hitting the cartoony monster. And in some ways, maybe it's a small thing, but I think it really adds to the depth as well as the character of the watch. And that is really the Number Cruncher in a nutshell. It's a fun, cool, unusual design that's supposed to make you smile, as well as maybe remind you not to take life too seriously. However, as some of you may have guessed, there is a downside to this one as well, and for me it all comes down to the case. The dial here is fun and whimsical, but the case is kind of an odd one. And it's not that the case is cheap. I mean, it does feel fairly solid, and they did use a sapphire crystal. It's just that the case is a bit odd, as well as generic at the same time, which I know doesn't really make any sense. But you see, it's odd just from this very minimalistic angle design. Yet when you look at this side and you see this sort of odd plug on the opposite side of the crown, at that point you realize that the case is also a bit generic. It's designed to be a one-size-fit-all thing. That it's designed to be a standard case they can use in a lot of watches, all topped off with this comfortable yet generic mesh bracelet. And in that way, this case is more like a standard blank canvas or frame they can use for their art. The case is also very polished, which may work with what they're trying to do, but at the same time, can't really help but feel that it's going to get scratched all to heck over time. And while this one isn't automatic, I'm betting that they use the same case on some of their quartz watches. And if you haven't noticed, this one does have a snap-on case back, and that's always annoying when it's paired with a quartz movement. Then there's the price, which depending on your point of view will be a bit high, and especially if you're comparing this to, say, a normal everyday watch. But the thing is, you gotta remember that this isn't just a normal everyday driver, and part of what you're paying for here is the unusual nature and the artistry of it. So this is another one of those art on your wrist type situations. And art is art. Art is subjective, and art is really hard to universally evaluate. As for some, art is priceless, whereas for others, you're insane for paying this much for a watch. But bottom line is that if you're looking for a great, well-made, everyday driver that's going to serve you for years to come, this isn't it. And it's not what it's really trying to be. This is something that's a bit fun, creative, and unique. It's for those that love watches for being watches, and for those that don't take themselves too seriously. It's not something you're going to wear every day, but something you'll wear every so often just when you feel like it. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit odd, a little bit strange and unusual, something that can be a bit of a conversation starter, then take a look at what Mr. Jones has got. You just might find something that makes you smile. Now, as usual, you guys know what to do down below. Let me know what you think about this watch or all of the Mr. Jones watches, and especially if there's one you really like. This was the other one I was thinking about getting. But as always, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm Shane, this is Relative Time, and I'll see you next time.